Persona 3 Reload, episode Aigis.
Impossible. You're just like
Wait a minute, this is kinda like...
It's frustrating for traffic, but at least there aren't any distractions. Be nagging at you.
Akihiko, shut the fuck up! Combat, the core of every Persona game. How good is it in the answer?
Hey, quit moving! That was great, sister.
No, it fucking wasn't. Yeah, obviously the combat itself is as good as it can be. It's the best combat in any Persona 3 game that we've seen so far. But the problem isn't the combat, it's the volume of the combat. So, you've got this big story-based DLC, and for the first 6 hours of it, you're going to be doing pretty much just combat, and fuck all else, occasional story breaks that last about 5 minutes each. But after that 5-minute break, you are going to have to do an hour of dungeon crawling in dungeons that, by the way, look the same as the one you did before, and the music is also the same, just a tiny bit different, and there is literally nothing to really entertain you during that time. It's just fucking combat. And yeah, I know that half of what I just complained about is true of Tartarus, but the difference is, you would only do Tartarus for 20 floors, and then you would have like an hour, maybe an hour and a half of story and social sim content, followed by, you know, a bit more dungeon crawling. It was very, very balanced, which is what Persona prides itself on. But the answer doesn't. It prides itself on having 6 hours of fighting the same battles over and over in the same environment, with no breaks in between apart from tiny little memory fragments of the characters. That is the only break you have in these dungeons. It goes completely against the formula, and to be quite honest, is so fucking boring. It reached a point where I switched the difficulty on peaceful and just skipped all the floors, because I could not care fucking less.
Shadow Sonic. What's the
Are you fucking kidding me? It doesn't help that the actual story content for that first 6 hours, which is, by the way, like 90% of the answer, it doesn't help that that element doesn't really have any story content within it whatsoever. So you don't even have that motivation to push forward. The only motivation I had to push forward in this was to get to the fucking end so I could shelf it and not touch it again. Because this, well, I love Persona 3 Reload, I love it dearly. This, I thought it was going to enhance my opinion of the game, but it has downgraded it. I mean, this is the way to send it off. This is the final thing that you do in Persona 3, and it's this shit?
That was a good workout.
It's about the 50th time I've heard him fucking say that. It also just feels like this DLC was lazily put together. I can't imagine it took him a lot of time to put this shit together, because there isn't, it's not full of content at all. It's completely fluffed up. 90% of the runtime of this DLC is just combat. It's just the same monotonous combat over and over. And like I mentioned previously, a lot of these dungeon designs are repeated, and while there's nothing wrong with any of these dungeon designs, I would have appreciated a bit more variety, rather than seeing the same ones over and over. I think they all repeated each other like 3 times throughout. It reached a point where it's an eyesore. My eyes are sore just remembering this. And listen, I know what people are going to say immediately. Oh, well, it had to be designed like this because they had to, you know, make it make sense in context to the story. There are other ways of tackling this. There are so many instances where games do shit design choices and people just go, oh, well, they were trying to make a point. Okay, maybe don't make the point. Or make the point differently. You don't have to make the point in this way. I don't care if this is the most effective way. Because if to make the point most effective, you have to slog through slop and shit and piss, then, frankly, just don't even bother making the point. Scrap that point entirely. Just give me the actual content. Because if this is what I have to do to reach that payoff, don't fucking do it. I don't care. And listen, I'm sorry. This is probably one of my most negative videos in a while, but I am so deeply and negatively opinionated on this, because it just angers me. I don't dislike Persona combat, but I do dislike it if you only give me Persona combat and no elements of social sim, because that is what the Persona series has prided itself on since the 3rd entry. Not so much the Persona 1 and 2 duology, but, you know, Persona 3, 4, 5 prided itself on being that mix of pretty much a visual novel and an RPG at the same time, but the answer scraps that in favour of just being an RPG and just deciding, you know what, shove all the story content in the last 2 hours and have the first 6 hours just be slop, because that is what people are going to want to spend their money on.
Sister, a shadow! Sister, a shadow! Keep your filthy hands off my sister! Call you my sister? I'll always give my all for my sister.
Okay, we fucking get it, man! Metis is one of the most meh characters I have ever witnessed in a video game. She doesn't really justify her existence very much. She's just kinda there. And no, I'm not a media illiterate fool. I understand why she exists and what she's trying to represent. She's kind of like the human side of Aigis that she's trying to shut away. But that doesn't really, in my opinion, justify her entire existence, because as a character, Metis is pretty much empty. I mean, she cares so much about her sister, who she doesn't even really know, and she has no memories, she has no real backstory or existence or anything. She's literally just there to make that one point at the end that she is basically almost a little bit like Virgil and V in Devil May Cry 5. Metis serves that role of V, pretty much, which is cool, is fair enough, but because of how long this is and how much of a presence she has, I don't think it justifies her being here, really. I don't know, maybe I'm a miserable twat, but I just don't think she really justifies her existence enough for her to be pretty much a major character. I think she's fine, I don't think she's bad, I'm not like, you know, seething at the fact that she exists. I just don't think she was utilised as well as she could have been.
Are you saying you want to fight?
The last 2 hours or so of episode Aigis focus very much so on tapping into the humanity of these characters as they use the old natural human method of fighting to get their way, which is fair enough, to be honest, in context of what's going on. As Mitsuru herself said, they're not going to be so easily swayed when it is the life of a friend that is at stake. During this part of the story, they focus greatly on 2 outcomes, one of them being going to the past and possibly changing the future, with Makoto still being alive, and the other outcome is moving to the future, accepting his sacrifice for what it was, and moving forward despite the harshness of it. And yep, it's handled pretty well and makes good points about, you know, the meaning of life, and especially for Aigis, because she tried to cut that part of herself pretty much out by ignoring it, wishing she was a robot again so she didn't really have to feel or think about what she should do moving forward, and I think that was handled really well, greatly, and is one of the few things I will actually compliment about the answer. It ends very well. It just isn't very good for about 90% of it, but that's the thing, the 10% that is good is really good, and there is a lot of good stuff to pick up on and analyse here between the characters, the themes, everything that's being presented to you, and it's handled really, really well.
I miss him. It hurts knowing he's gone forever, but I can see his choice and why he made it. I was pretty jealous for a good while there. Yeah, just petty jealousy, plain and simple. I wanted it to be me.
Some of the best depth and character emotional complexity that we see in Persona 3 is seen in episode Aigis, or The Answer. And it comes from Yukari a lot, which was interesting. Of all the characters, Yukari, and obviously her, you know, what they do with her ties very greatly into the themes of The Answer. She doesn't want to move on into a future where he isn't there, and if she's granted the opportunity to go back and save him, she wants to, but upon further reevaluation and obviously just kind of letting her anger out in that battle, she came to the conclusion that she has to honour the choice that he made and the sacrifice that he made, and yeah, I appreciate this, because I think it's very human, and it's handled really well. Anyway, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, please go ahead and leave a like and subscribe for more. I will probably be making another video on Persona 3 Reload in the future. It'll probably be a while, but you know, when I end up replaying the game at some point later, maybe next year or the year after, I will make videos covering elements of it that I find interesting. But please don't take this video personally. If you like The Answer, then that's just more power to you. I don't, and I just want to use this video to express that, but that doesn't take away from the great story elements. See ya.
I just need to know. I just need to know.